At this time, I'd like to call to order the meeting of Monday, March 8th. If you could please stand for the salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. So our town clerk is not here this evening, but one of our deputy town clerks, Roxanne Ammerman, is with us this evening. At this time, Roxanne, I would ask that you please read the public hearing notice.
The legal notice for the public hearing for the one-time charge for new connections to Consolidated Sewer District scheduled for the 8th day of March 2021 at 7 p.m. was published in the Daily Messenger newspaper on February 26, 2021, and a copy is available in the town clerk's office.
Thank you. And I know, as you can see on the screen for the public, as well as the town board members, you'll see Mr. Mark Terrian is with us as well. Mark, I was wondering at this point if maybe you wanted to hit a few highlights, and then we could, and I apologize for not giving you any heads up, but maybe a couple highlights, and then we could proceed and ask for public comment.
Yeah, thank you very much. No apologies necessary. I'm happy to hit some highlights. Mark Terrian, as Mr. Supervisor indicated, from Labella Associates. So the underlying circumstances, or the circumstances that underline the proposal we're talking about tonight, are that new connections to the sewer district will utilize and thereby reduce existing capacity within the sewer district collection system that's been developed with funds collected from parcels within the district over the past 10 or 11 years. Parcels beyond the district and proposing to enter via an extension will have made no contribution to those funds. Parcels already within the district but unconnected will have contributed to those funds, but at a quite reduced rate. So payment of a one-time connection charge is being proposed for those that would either enter from outside the district or that may have been within the district and not been connected, to reconcile that inequity. And it's been argued or proposed that that approach would be better than the approach that has been utilized in the past, which involves relying on the identification of an environmental impact when there is insufficient capacity within the system to require people to actually provide improvements, particularly developers, and that's proved to be somewhat arbitrary in the way that works out. So this is an alternative solution that's being proposed. The proposed one-time charge would be collected and retained by the town of Victor to help the district meet those needs. And it would be in addition to any similar charge charged presently by either the village of Victor or the town of Farmington. So the proposed charge would be calculated as the difference between an estimate of the amount that one of these properties would have paid or to the consolidated district over the past 10 years, and an estimate of what they will actually have paid over the past 10 years. And there's a table, proposed fee table that I think is probably available to you that shows those figures. Shows in the first column shows an estimate of what would have been paid over 10 years, and in the second column for each of these different types of properties, an estimate of what was actually paid over the 10 years, and the required charge is the difference between the two. So it's an attempt to bring them up to contribution footing that's comparable to a property that would have been in the district for the entire time. And there's also a provision for instances in which a new extension is being proposed and approved by the town board. There's also a provision, should there be reasons to receive primarily from a developer a contribution improvements instead, in lieu of the payment of such a fee. There's a provision that would allow the town board to waive the fee and rely instead on the contribution of actual improvements or funding of improvements by developers. So I think that's probably the highlights, and I know you're going to ask for comments, and I'd also be happy to assist in responding to any questions that may come up.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. So at this time, I'd ask if there's any members of the public to care to speak for or against this new one-time connection fee. Again, I ask if there's any members of the public to care to speak for or against this one-time connection fee. Frank, did you look at this at your office, or was this someone else within one of your associates? And are you fine with everything that's been put together here?
Well, I actually was involved in a lot of the discussions with Mark and Labella and Kim Casella, the planning department, regarding the connection fee and the factors that were taken into consideration with respect to how these one-time charges were calculated. And, based upon our understanding of the law and the research and the process that Labella, the comprehensive, I should say, process Labella undertook to determine these one-time fees, I'm satisfied that they meet the legal requirements of the general municipal law, and that they're reasonable and well thought out, and again, designed to address the inequity that exists with respect to those future users that want to connect to the sewer district in their ability to avoid having to participate in the capital costs that it took to develop the district and develop the capacity that they then intend to use. So, yeah, I'm satisfied with the process, the equation and the effort, and again, the comprehensive thought and input that Labella did in determining these charges.
Thank you, Frank. And I do want to, just one comment, I just want to thank our Deputy Town Supervisor, Councilman Dave Condon. He was a champion on this, and he championed it and kept it moving through this process. So there's no public comment at this time. I'll ask for entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
First and a second. Okay. I'm here for you, trying to help you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, public hearing is here closed. We now move to, I guess I have just one quick thing I want to say real quick. Last week's, today is actually day number 372 of the COVID-19 global pandemic. It was a year ago last Monday that the first reported positive case in New York State was announced. It's been quite a year, how much we have experienced and how much we have learned. So really, I know there was a lot made in the media about that, but certainly when we reflect on how it impacts each and every one of us, our families, and certainly it's been interesting to say the very least. This time, approval of meeting minutes. We have the town board member for your consideration, February the 22nd town board meeting. Consideration to approve these meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Second by Councilman Cusimano, first by Councilman, to help Roxanne out, why don't we just state your name, okay? When we're offering a first and a second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting minutes have been approved. Payment of bills, manifest number 5 of 2021. I'll ask Susie to get it up on the screen. And Roxanne, if you would be so kind and introduce this, please.
Manifest number 5 for 2021 in the amount of $217,342.58 has been reviewed by the Victortown Board with the following accounts charged: general townwide, general outside village, highway townwide, the lighting districts of Fishers, Brookwood Meadows, High Point, Cobblestone, Quail Ridge, Rolling Meadows, Stoneleigh, and Legacy at the Fairways, and SS Consolidated Sewer Fund.
Thank you very much. And as we've done historically here, try to identify expenditures that are in the range of or exceed $10,000. Payment number one, Noco Energy Corporation for diesel fuel. Next is Rochester Gas and Electric, townwide electric and gas utilities. Number three, American Rock Salt. These are road salt. Certainly that's the time of year we are in. Next is payment to integrated systems for additional sonic wall, antivirus, and March hosting fees. Payment to Office of the Aging and Office of the State Comptroller for fines and fees for December of 2020. Payment to Boughton Park for their 2021 budget contribution. Payment to Town of Farmington. This is money towards a variable drive upgrades per Resolution 422, which was 2 weeks ago. Payment to Shalafo PC. This is for Article 7 legal fees for certiorari matters. Payment to Sunoco for unleaded fuel. Harris Beach, February legal fees. The total of the above-mentioned expenditures is $191,654.59. Total town expenditures minus the previous mentioned expenditures equals $25,687.99. Board members, any questions on this evening's manifest as introduced? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the payments thereof.
Condon, so moved. Guinan, second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, next on this evening's agenda, privilege of the floor. Kyle Corman is here with us this evening to talk about a request for a hold harmless agreement regarding a fence. I did have the good pleasure of speaking to Kyle on the phone earlier today to kind of go through the process on his behalf. Kyle, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. It's okay to remove the
You
mask?
can take it off.
Right, okay.
Make sure your mic's on. There should be a little green light at the bottom of it.
Yeah, it should be. I'd give it a little.
Yep,
You're
you're
there.
good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, thank you for giving me the privilege of the floor tonight. My name is Kyle Corman. I'm a Victor resident. I live at 7740 Pine Tree Drive in Victor. It's a part of the Evergreen Meadows subdivision, Lot 5 to be specific. It is subject to a covenant between the division and the town for a conservation easement. And I want to start off by saying that I do fully know what the conservation easement is. I know why it exists, and I fully support it. I agree with it, and I have demonstrated that as such last spring when we were putting up a shed in our backyard. I was looking for a place to place it, and one of the most practical spots in my mind for it in the backyard was actually in a spot where I found out where the conservation easement was. That's kind of how I learned about it, other than when we bought the house, and I overlooked that aspect of it. But it did come to light last spring when we were placing our shed. And once I found out that that was not allowed to have an accessory structure back there, I learned what it was, and I worked very closely with the town and with the code enforcement office to go through the right process. So, I worked with Al and Tom and Marty. I staked out a different spot. I had them come, look, mapped it out, got my approvals, went through the application, paid the fees, got the approvals, and then had them back out to inspect it, and everything went great. And I just wanted to show that, that hopefully demonstrates that, I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I respect the conservation easement, and I understand what it is, and I'm going to comply with it. And so I'm kind of presented with a different situation this year, one that I'm hoping I can make a compelling enough case to request a condition for an exception to place a fence in my backyard. And really, it's just one that's centered around safety and security for my family. So I have a wife and a 2-year-old son. He's going to be 3 this June, and an 80-pound lab pointer mix. He's a rescue and a very large flight risk. And that was very much evidenced a couple years ago when he got out of the house twice in the front yard. Parents were in town, left the door open. Dog had his collar on, thank God, but this tracker showed that he logged about 2 or 3 miles circling Willis Hill and Dreyer before we finally found him. And this did happen twice. So he's proven to us that he needs to be contained. And so the backyard is really where he gets the most freedom. And so last year, sort of the scenario was we were all living and dealing with COVID, and we were bound to our houses. In fact, I think you said today was day 372, so I'm pretty sure last year on this time it was quarantine, stay at home, and that's what we did. We played our part and we stayed home. And the situation was one where the dog wants to go outside, our toddler wants to go outside, they both want to play, they want to have fun, and neither of them can do it at the same time. So it was really just more of a chore for me and my wife. It was, all right, one of us takes Calder outside, our son, goes and plays, the dog barks the whole time because he can't be out there, and then we switch. And then the dog goes outside, and like I said, he needs to be contained, so I set up a dog run with a tether, 30-foot tether, which only works when one of us is outside because, in essence, it acts like a clothesline and a huge hazard to a little 30, 40-pound kid. And I mean, we throw the ball for him, we throw a flippy, he runs down the line, he just has a lot of momentum that he can build up. If he sees a deer or something, he will dart right for it. So there's nothing that I could say to get him to stop if the four of us were outside and my son was in the line, like in the path of where he'd be going. So it was really hard last year when all we wanted to do was all we could do was stay at home, and all we wanted to do was play outside. We couldn't do it as a family together. This year, our dog is no less a flight risk. We are still dealing with COVID. We are prepared for another summer of being at home, playing our part, and we just want to be outside together as a family. And our son he will be 3 in June. He's bigger, he's stronger. The dog wants to play with him. He wants to play with the dog. They play fetch in the house. And outside, this is what we envision doing together. This is on wheels. So it's a really hard thing to picture, not being able to, all of us be outside together as a family. Our son also has recently developed, or has had, and we just found out, an exotropic eye, which basically just means one of them isn't as strong as the other. So our optometrist has recommended that he go through patching, where for several hours a day, he has to patch the good eye so the bad eye can get strengthened. And this has resulted, we've been doing it for 2 months, and there's really no end in sight yet. So we are prepared for this to be at least a year, possibly longer than that. But the point being is when it is covered, the doctor's recommendation is to be active, not be like in front of a TV or inside. It's all about depth perception, throwing, catching balls, kicking balls, running around, looking at the ground. And outside is where he can learn to cope with something on his eye like that. It's been tough the last couple months with winter and being inside and doing it, and we'd like to be able to do that outside. As a result, he trips and falls a lot. He's working with one bad eye. And this kind of presents another situation that's hazardous, and I want to start out by saying on the back portion of our yard, there is a fence that is not part of the conservation easement, nor is it on our property line, but it's butted right up against it, and it's fallen apart, it's in bad condition, and I just want to throw out quickly that although it is not our fence, I don't intend to lodge any complaints. I have no complaints. It belongs to my neighbor who I have a great relationship with, and I want to maintain that, so I don't intend to do anything with that fence or request anything from it. But it is falling apart, and it's made of wrought iron and wire mesh that the deer have trotted down, and the poles are no longer upright. They're not plumb straight. They're kind of out at different angles. They're an impalement hazard. The wire mesh itself is twisted and pointed up, and it's about anywhere from ground level to about here. So it's essentially face and neck level with my son. And it is not hard to imagine at all him kicking a ball over in that area, tripping and falling and landing on the iron part of the fence. So all I'm asking to do, honestly, is just put up a aesthetically pleasing, natural-looking wooden fence through the conservation easement in my backyard to contain my family back there in a safe manner. I have some pictures here of what it would look like. It's just your standard post holes and split rail fencing in between, all natural wood. And just as an active consideration, I'd be willing to make some kind of compromise or condition with you guys if you wanted to say, give me conditional approval so long as we live in the house, and then if we sell it, take it down if there's any amount of neighborhood complaints that you deem necessary, 2, 3, 3 in a year's time or whatever you think would be appropriate. But I would really, appreciate consideration just giving me this one exception to do that. I'm fairly certain, 99% sure that I would get neighborhood support from it, from all my neighbors, just about, and I don't think that it would affect the natural beauty of the landscape at all. It's a see-through style fence. It's not going to impair any visuals. I don't believe that it would break any major rules of the covenant, other than to just be placing a structure there or disturbing the natural part of it. But again, if I ever sold the house, I'd be willing to sign something that says I'd take it out, and also sign a hold harmless agreement to the town if you ever needed to go through it. I wouldn't hold the town liable for, replacing it or fixing it or anything like that. I just want a nice looking fence up in my backyard so that we can play ball and get through the summer together and have fun, just to have fun out there as a family.
Well, Kyle, I failed to mention on the phone earlier today that, first of all, and my colleagues would probably offer the same, we appreciate your honesty. We actually, 2 weeks ago, we had another resident come in. Their intention was a conservation easement. They wanted to mow it. We thanked them for their honesty. We did deny what they were offering. You and I, in our conversation today, we did talk about the selling of the house as an option, your neighbors as well. So I do, again, appreciate your honesty, and this time I'd like the board members, if they would, if they have an opinion one way or the other on this request.
The question I have, I guess you certainly want to maximize the area of the fence, but what would preclude you from just having the fence not extend to that line? Because, I mean, the way that I see that, I know that probably wouldn't be ideal, but you'd still be looking at something that's 154 across by almost 100 deep. So is that something you've considered?
Excuse me, yep, I have considered that. It really, I mean, I do understand from one dimension, it really does elongate it. The true use of our property is really the depth of it, just the way that it's used. One side of it really is where my dog uses it to go to the bathroom, where we do all of our cleanup. Not really usable fun space there. The other side is a lot of trees. So the biggest open area is just from the back deck, if you're looking at out towards the back, and my son can easily, like a daycare, he throws balls over the fence all the time. I don't want him to be able to go over onto that side, and then really the idea is to get this butted up against another fence that is, it's a safety hazard. So, and also from like just a general upkeep perspective, we'd have to put in extra payment to open up the doors and get on the other side to mow that. And I understand that that's a necessary thing that needs to be done, but I really want to just maximize the running area for our dog and for my kid too.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that. I think that I'm the junior person here. I've been here for a year, but I think, as the supervisor said, we see quite a few requests to do something with that easement area, and it seems, from the experience I've had here so far, it just seems so difficult to grant one, just because that kind of opens a floodgate. And I hate to, I guess, hold that opinion, but while yours makes sense, some others might not, and that might set a precedent to where it would be difficult one way or another. So
yeah, and I certainly don't hope
appreciate. I can certainly appreciate where you're coming from. I mean, my only recommendation would be, if it wasn't granted and you weren't able to go forward with that, I mean, I would hope that there would be something you could do there, and it just might not be as ideal.
Yeah, I've tried to give it a lot of thought since last spring, and I mean, it really comes down to just getting the whole family out there and having our dog contained, but also free to run around and play. We'd like to do that without a leash or without, because when they play together, it's a safety hazard there. I mean, he can get wrapped around it. I've seen my dog get to the end of his run and accidentally wrapped around a tree, and he can't get unwrapped, so I go out there and I'm walking unwrapping him, and I've caught myself and like, oh, I got my leg in a little loop. like, I've gotten clipped with it a couple times, and, you know, I've had, you know, marks on my legs and arms, and it's hit me in the back before, and I'm like, that just can't be my son. Like, it's not a whoops type of situation. It's a, this is, can't ever happen situation. And I understand that my request, I hope that it wouldn't set a precedent. I mean, I certainly hope that my situation is unique enough in that sense back there. I just hope that there's consideration there. I've got pictures of just what the fence back there looks like now that's on the property line. And in fact, just to demonstrate, you know, how seriously I'm taking this, you know, I got a surveyor to come out and just mark where the property corners are, find the property corners, and then mark the stakes in between, just to show how close this fence is that's there, that's, you know, on my property and out at an angle, a sharp angle. It kind of renders my yard, I don't want to say useless, that's not the right way to put it, because that's not true, but I can't get the full usability of it. And, I mean, that's basically where we live in our free time, too. I mean, our home is our sanctuary, but these days our homes are offices, too. And, you know, our son's home 2 days a week, he goes to daycare 3 days a week, and with spring coming up around the corner, you know, we just want him to be able to be outside as much as possible, and with the dog, too, and not have him crying at the screen door because the dog's outside, and not have the dog barking at the screen door because my son's outside. That was tough last year. So I could show you pictures of the fence if that's something you'd want to see, and also pictures of what we would put up. I hope that is the most minimalist.
We do have a copy of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't believe you have copies of these. I'll just start down here and pass them.
Councilman Cusimano, you know, great point. I mean, certainly precedent. This is unique, there's no question. Public safety, I mean, the safety of a child, you know, we're all fathers and grandfathers, most of us, sorry. So, any other comments, board members?
I think the option of moving the fence up is at least an option that you would have, and my concern would be if we allowed the fence to be constructed as you plan on it, how are you going to not cut or touch any of the ground cover, grass, whatever? You're not allowed to do that in the conservation easement. So you're going to effectively lose that space anyway. Even if we let you put the fence around it, you can't touch that. So whatever grows up there, grows wild, you're not going to be able to keep your dog out of it, your son out of it, you know, because the intent of the conservation easement is that you don't disturb any of the natural state of any of that. So, you know, it'd be too tempting, I think, for you to, you know, get to a point and continue to mow because that's where I'm going to kick the ball, or that's where I'm going to do this or do that. I've been a liaison for the Conservation Board, and they take all this very seriously. I don't think they're in support of it, so I'd have to say that I agree with that, and I'm probably not in support of it.
Thank you, Councilman Kohovic, appreciate that. And any other thoughts? Councilman Guinan, Councilman Condon.
So this is the neighbors where the American wire fence is. Number one, I do hope that, just to ask you, but I hope that when you bought the property, the conservation easement was made very clear when you purchased it, that it was after the fact. Because we have, in places in town, had that surprise to people when they purchased the property and found out what the guidelines of the conservation easement really are.
Yeah.
But we've had instance numerous times since I've been here where people came and asked for that variable, and we've had to deny just, and based on that, it sets a precedence, it really does. Technically, it almost looks now, I don't know for sure, and I don't want to, looks like you're mowing beyond, you're mowing now in the easement as it stands?
At the risk of, I guess, incriminating any of our neighbors, I would say that our entire development is doing that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are, and that's one of the biggest compliance issues that our codes are working on now in terms of setting those boundaries that are established, and it is difficult. There's no question about it, because, and I agree with Councilman Kohovic's assessment that you get that fence around there, and now all of a sudden it becomes very inviting. Well, another 6 inches, another foot, another 2 feet, and it defeats the purpose of the code, and it defeats the purpose of why it was set up, and I agree. I think a lot of times, you know, it's, you know, they always say buyer beware, or watch out, because the realtors are like, oh, don't worry about that, you know, just sign, you know, and I think you knew you had a conservation easement when you bought the property. And I look at some of these properties that are being developed today, and it's 15 feet off the line, or off their house, or 20 feet off the line, and they're very close to a setback requirement, and then they're not that far from federal wetlands even, in some of the places that are going up. So I just think if we were to grant that, and I understand wholeheartedly what you're saying, but I think if we were to grant that, I think it undermines a lot of our comprehensive master plan. It undermines a lot of the work that these people that work on the conservation board and the rest of the committee and our codes people that work hard to enforce and to make sure and to educate some of the public that might not be as educated as you are of what the compliances are. So I feel exactly for what you're saying, but I kind of agree with Drew, and that, you know, you might have to settle for a little bit smaller space with what you have.
It
And
seemed,
it looks very nice, and it looks,
I mean, I'm just trying to do I'm
I know.
trying to do the right thing. I'm here trying to do the right thing as well. I mean, it's,
all right, and
it,
there's been places in town where we've gone, had to take the next step and tell people that they have to stop mowing where they've been mowing for a long, long time, because of the terms of the conservation easement.
or move their sheds, or move their playgrounds, and other.
and that's the point I'm trying to make. One of the points I was trying to make is I'm really trying to do the right thing, and I do have a shed, and it's new as of the spring, and I considered putting it in a place where I thought I could until I found out I couldn't, and then went through the right steps to make sure that it was in the right spot. I mean, I'm trying to just be reasonable, and I'm just looking for some kind of reasonableness back. I mean, the issue I'm talking about isn't one of, you know, grass this high versus weeds growing. It's an issue of safety, and right now it's not a safe situation, and I can't, I mean, yes, as a parent, I could basically sit over top of my son and watch him run up to an area where he's not allowed to run to, and then say, turn back, kid. Or I could let him be a kid and run on some grass, and if he trips and falls, that's the end. It's a bad situation in the pictures that you're looking at there. It's,
No, it doesn't help what you're requesting, but have you spoken to your adjoining neighbor there just about removing that fence, just because it doesn't seem to serve a purpose currently with the state it's in?
well, so kind of one of my options I wanted to pursue was asking him if he would consider, and like I said, I've got a good relationship with him. Quick backstory, I guess. Last year, when, you know, my dog was on a tether on one side of the property, me and my wife were on the other side, and my son was sitting in his little thing, and we were all separate. I threw a football, I overthrew my wife, it rolled onto his property, it hit a bee's nest. She got stung 8 times. I called him up, was very polite about it, and he was there the next day with 2 cans of Raid on his own. Like, he didn't call a beekeeper or an exterminator. He was out there with 2 cans of Raid, and I went out and I thanked him like profusely for it. It was a very bold, noble move for a neighbor to do that, for a request of another neighbor. You know, I'd like to see if you'd consider, if you guys, you know, didn't grant me this request, if you would consider letting me replace that section of his fence with mine, and then adjoin it. Where on the back edge, running the east to west, north end of the property, that would not be in the conservation easement. It'd be on his property. And in fact,
It sounds like that might be viable to construct a fence along that line just onto his side, but then you'd have that lapse, and, you know, you wouldn't be able to fully box that in.
As there's going to be an opening. And like I said, that American wire fence, you'll find there's a lot of developments around where when they put them in, that American wire fence with those steel posts was there long before there was development there, and and they built and left it, and they left it for whatever reason. You know, at the very least, you could ask him if it could be removed, because it really serves no purpose, and it's just something that's been there for many years before that development was there.
Yeah, I didn't want to subject him to any part of anything other than what I'm simply just looking to do myself and leave it at that. But, I mean, are there any other considerations that could be made on behalf of my request to give me some kind of relief here? Honestly?
You know, just to kind of wrap it up, I think, unfortunately, for the consistency of it, and again, you certainly have a unique case, there's no question about that, it would be a denial to put it within the conservation easement and request a hold harmless from the town. I think the point Councilman Cusimano made, or Councilman Kohovic, if there's any opportunity to come forward beyond that, and then put your fence there, unfortunately, or work something out with your neighbor.
What would you suggest I work out with my neighbor?
Whether or not, he put a fence on his property off of the, outside that conservation easement. You're enhancing his property, and hopefully it would serve your purpose.
Very good.
Okay. This time it's public comments and concerns, an opportunity for members of the public to address the town board.
So, good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Hi.
It's nice to see you in person. So I'm here, I'll state my name, Lisa Roberts, 1256 Wellington Drive, in the Village Victor. So I wanted to come before you tonight to thank you for your ongoing support of Parks and Recreation Department. And also to publicly thank Brian Emelson for his hard work and continued flexibility to meet the challenges during this past year. I also want to thank him for the hard work on developing a reopening plan that meets the New York State guidelines. He's been able to put a nice variety of programs for all age groups together. Making them outdoor programs required creativity. But that's one thing Brian always has, the ability to find a solution to changing needs. So I'm here to express my support as a town resident, as chair of the CAC, and spokesperson for other people on our committee that couldn't attend tonight. And the committee just wants to publicly support and request the funding that proposed spring and summer programming Brian has developed starting in April, including funds to hire appropriate staff to run the programs. And we also support the funding required to return programming to the rec center this fall and winter, including the staff to run the programs. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Are there other members of the, oh,
Good evening. My name is Jessica Evangelista, and I am a resident of the town of Victor. I live at 6310 Candlelight Run, and I would just like to echo Lisa's sentiments that Parks and Recreation funding Parks and Recreation is so crucial to our children. I have a twin 7-year-olds and a 5-year-old son, and recognize that Director Emelson has put together a very thoughtful proposal to reinstate the spring and summer programming that follow all of the New York State health and safety guidelines. And I would like to thank the town, for being proactive when the pandemic happened, as you stated, Supervisor Marin, 372 days ago. And here we are, and I think it's time, and I would ask the board to please consider bringing back those programs for our kids. Our kids need them. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm Carol Fisher, 632 Wangum Road, also known as County Road 42. From two reliable sources, we have heard that there has been some talk about a desire for artificial lighting at the courts in Fishers Park. At present, the park is a dawn to dusk park. That is, natural lighting dictates the duration of activity. So it is in that vein that I circulated a petition opposing artificial lighting. It states in part, natural lighting offers natural limits, and this park should remain a dawn to dusk park. This petition is not anything against the present primary users of the courts, and that's the pickleball players. Excuse me. They're a wonderful group of people, and they're welcoming and fun-loving, and they're hardworking, and they do a lot of maintenance on the courts. But with any activity comes sound, and that sound travels. The sound may be from the aforementioned pickleball, or kids riding bikes, or roller skating, or playing tennis. All of this is fine, and it's actually joyous during daylight hours. However, at dusk, it's not so welcomed. And at that time, we'd prefer to hear crickets. In going through the neighborhood for signatures, I learned that the sound, particularly from pickleball, as it is high-pitched, carries all the way up Fowler Street and down to Main Street. Even one person on Burke Hollow, that's the next street up from Fowler Street, reported that she could hear it. Every person I contacted is opposed to artificial lighting that would extend activity and extend the sound. I will add that my neighbors had further concerns beyond lighting, and I will compile those and send them along to you, Jack. I'll get those to you. But it was the lighting that was the primary topic. You may say to me that no request for added lighting has even come before you, and that's fine. We are being proactive. Please save this petition, and if a request comes forward, please present this petition noting that the local residents, the ones who would be most impacted, are opposed to artificial lighting. And it is their hope that their concerns would be held in the highest consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. So, Carol, I will just mention that we did have a presentation from the pickleball group, very informative. I continue to get photos on cold wintry days when most people are inside and they're out shoveling and playing pickleball. Come on down, Jack.
It's an amazing group.
So they are. They're yes, beyond passion. There's no question about that. We did the presentation, then certainly Brian Emelson is a leader in that and outdoor activities, and that's something, as both our residents spoke of, we're committed to certainly recreational activities outside, investing in our parks. If we look at anything what the pandemic has done, it's forced us to be outside and use the amenities that we have. So I'm pretty sure the board is committed to financially making some changes over there, and that would be adding a area for them to play pickleball and some parking as well. And that's all Jack heard. I haven't heard anything about lights.
And hang on to that petition.
Are you trying to tell us the lights are coming? Phase two? They have a phase two and...
No, I'm not telling you they're coming. I don't want them. So, and you have that in case somebody comes along and says that they would like them. You can just hold up the petition.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that care to address the town board? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Susie? No? Okay. Moving along, reports of town officials. In your packet, you have the report from Economic Development, Parks and Recreation, and our town historian. In addition, while I have a couple things before I ask if board members have anything, real quick, vaccine distribution, I'd asked you all to be very patient. We are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel here. We're getting more vaccines available to all of our local pharmacies, even here at Mead Square in the village. They received 500 doses last week. They're receiving another 100 this week. Ontario County, our numbers, we're only receiving 400. It's kind of up and down, which is frustrating. But total county-wide, it's 1,300. A number of them are going to Wegmans, and like I said, Rite Aid, CVS as well. We did, and again, this is Moderna, excuse me, and Pfizer. Let's see, I think Pfizer was used at Mount Olive Church in Geneva. That was a state-supported initiative, and there's no Johnson. We may get some Johnson & Johnson, but right now, as much as I know they talked about it being very plentiful, I was told that for the next couple of weeks, there's only like 600,000 doses countrywide. So we'll see. Maybe New York will get a few. But in addition, I want to mention that we are also, out of the control room last week, we also denied extending into the restaurant workers, taxi drivers, Uber, and Lyft drivers. Governor had announced that about a month ago. All 9 counties were in support of this. We just don't have enough doses right now to continue that. And since then, in the mix now are hotel workers, food banks, pantry, and home meal deliveries. So we just don't have enough supply to keep up with the demand at this point. We did 2 weeks ago. There was a report of 2 weeks ago that we had our first UK COVID-19 strain confirmed in this county. I also want to mention and recognize Mr. Metzger, Rochester Business Power 100, and Steve Metzger from the CEO from Labella was recognized. So congratulations to you, Steve. It's quite an accomplishment for you and Labella Associates as well. So congratulations. Rapid testing. Now that the state is open, the guidelines are changing for weddings and specifically. We can have 150 individuals, guests at a wedding. It's mandated that they go through a testing process. Again, we don't have guidelines out yet at this point. If Councilman Guinan has had the vaccine, if he's fully vaccinated, does he still need to be tested? So that's still, we're waiting for those kind of guidance on weddings and things of that nature. But the vast majority of the population will still, at this point, have to be tested prior to going to a wedding. So we're very close to having a site announced by the governor's office within our town that will provide the rapid testing. These are not free testing. These will be, I think it's about $30 per test, but we'll wait for the governor to announce that. On February 26th, he had our new county administrator here. He met with all of our departments, and then we proceeded over to the highway facility and transfer station, and he met with every single one of our department heads, and they talked about what they do, their interaction with the county. He was very much impressed with the town operation here as well. Like I mentioned, new state travel guidelines, we look forward to them. What else we have? I distributed to all the board members for the month of March. We get got a couple of action items going for the next few months. Sewer master plan. The intent would be to set the public hearing on March 22nd. Public hearing to be held on the April 12th. And potential adoption. Issue Mall zoning and building height changes for your consideration. We would go with a presentation from Labella Associates on April the 26th. Set public hearing on May 10th for the code change and have the public hearing on May 24th. So I just wanted to get that on your radar as well. Town board members, care to report on any committee you may be involved with?
Just as far as Parks and Rec Supervisor, we had a nice meeting last week, and really, Lisa pretty much reflected the opinion of that group, but I just wanted to emphasize as well that, they are working, and I know Mr. Emelson's working towards the Class 1 e-bikes, and they're working on the codes and the paperwork towards moving forward with that change to local law. And then, certainly particularly would be the recommendations they have as far as starting programming and the support that they offer towards a board resolution that would reopen the Parks and Rec and start programming. So I just wanted to echo those thoughts from that committee.
Great. Thank you, Councilman. Any other?
I have more of a comment, Supervisor Mayor, and I wanted to commend Susie Mandrino with her IT work and the cybersecurity stuff that, we sent out. We had to take that. And I was thinking about, I successfully passed my test and got it in. But I was thinking about our town population and the fact that there are folks that are isolated, there are folks that with this COVID stuff that might not have the resources or the help. And I don't know about you, but I had, I think 47 calls last week about my warranty is about to expire on my car and, the robocalls that we're getting. And I think it would behoove us if we could put something together. I mean, I don't know if Integrated System could offer something like that on a website for town employee, for not town employees, but for our residents to take. And I think mostly the elderly, they get confused, and I'm starting to put myself in that category on a few things as far as somebody calls, it's an unknown caller. I mean, don't answer the phone if it's not in your contact list. I mean, that's just a given. If it's important, they'll leave a message. The whole thing about the emails, if it's not from somebody that you know or an email that you're expecting, don't open it, delete it, move on. Because I think that the scammers are getting better, and I think we have to be more diligent. And maybe we can put together a bullet or something, put it on our list, top 10 things to do or not do, and just a reminder to our residents. And of course, the problem with that is that a lot of our elderly might not be in tune with our website or what they need, but I don't know, I was just thinking about them, and I was thinking about some recent issues with some of my family members and some of the things that they've had to deal with in terms of that kind of stuff. So kudos to Susie and Hamilton and Integrated Systems for what they do for us, and just more of a comment.
No, great point, and so maybe there's something I'll have Susie pursue with Integrated, but also maybe we could put together maybe a one-page bullet point items. So, and again, we don't, at this point, we have foregone, we've gone in a different direction as far as mailing out our news, our newsletter, but maybe there's an opportunity there to have some kind of an educational piece in there as well. And actually, to your point about the population, so again, Councilman Condon's point is that what Integrated was the board members and all of our employees is that we go through nowadays it's stealing identity theft, it's phishing, a number of different things, and so we all had to take this course, and but it was very, very helpful, and to your point, I really could see it helping the public. There's no question about that.
But just a comment.
Thank you. Any other comments, board members? Okay, and I did, just so you know, I did have a meeting earlier today with Casey and Tina regarding, and I apologize for not mentioning it before, the swap shop. We do anticipate, we'd like to get that going again. Probably we're looking at early part of May, I think it was, or June? June, thank you. So more to follow on that. Whoa. First of all, why don't you come to the podium? I allowed, and when I mentioned public comment earlier, I tell you what, why don't you sit tight, we'll get through our resolution, then we'll let you speak, okay? Okay, resolution number 1, this is coming out of the Finance Department, amending resolutions number 46-21. This is a lease agreement with Pitney Bowe. This has to do with the additional upgrades for the highway postage meter.
So moved. Second. Condon.
Okay.
Guinan.
Thank you both. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is approved. Item 2, coming from the Supervisor's Office, termination of the Engelbrecht Conservation Easement.
I assume by terminating that, they will have to pay back taxes on that as well.
Correct. There is, somewhere in your packet, I think,
I saw that.
there is a breakdown. Yes, indeed. So there's the penalty, and additional what they would have saved in tax savings also is added to that as well.
So moved. Condon.
Second, Kuzma.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Number 3, proposed local law to amend Chapter 211 zoning for Section 211-24 light industrial district regulations, setting a public hearing to be held on March 22nd, 7 p.m. This has to do with, and the mechanism would be a special use permit. They'd go through the planning board process, and it is adding health and wellness users under this special use permit process.
So moved. Guinan.
Second, Kuzma.
Kohovic, I heard Kohovic first. Sorry, Drew.
I didn't hear him. Is he
No,
on?
I heard Guinan, then I heard Kohovic. Between Drew.
Roxy, you good on those two? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And number 4, this is after public hearing. Again, I was surprised we didn't have a developer or two here. I know our Mr. Smith, one of our friends, is usually pretty outspoken, but it is what it is. So, board members, any comments? Okay, a motion to approve this.
So moved. Kohovic.
Second. Condon.
And this is a roll call vote, and we'll ask our clerk to call that, please, when she's ready.
Supervisor Marin,
Yes.
Councilman Condon,
Yes.
Councilman Kohovic,
Yes.
Councilman Guinan,
Yes.
Councilman Cusimano.
Yes.
Okay, now to public comment. Sir, feel free to come to the podium if you would.
My name's Frank Kaprzinski, I live at 51 Walling Street. And I've worked at the swap shop.
Sorry.
What was the name? I couldn't hear him.
Oh, Frank Kaprzinski,
Okay, thank you.
51 Walling Street, Victor, New York. And I've worked at the swap shop for roughly 7 years, and I worked, and volunteer, I should say. And I volunteer at the TTS shop, which is in Fairport, which is a thrift shop, for about 2 years. And the reason I'm down here, I was just curious on the opening, which you stated probably sometimes in June, correct?
Yes.
I just curious, the policies and the protocols that you would use for the people coming, the customers, and of course, the volunteers itself. And how, what systems would you use for the customers to come in? How many customers would have to come in? Is it a registration, or is it, you see what I mean?
Yep. A number of those, your questions are being worked through right now. I will tell you right now, what I did here today in that meeting was probably 2 volunteers on duty at all times. One way in, one way out into the building itself, and maybe up to 4 individuals at one time. There would be items for them to wash their hands. We're considering having rubber gloves available for them, as well as they go in there. So we'll take a look at, because last year, I know originally, the one of the governor's executive orders was to shut down no garage sales, things of that nature, and there were some, when he did reopen it up, there were some protocols, so we'll be looking at those as well. But 2 things. Number 1, be the safety of the volunteers first and foremost, and certainly individuals coming to the swap shop. Now, there would be some type as well signage that if individual A was to contact COVID-19, that the town would not be liable. But those are some things we're working through, sir, and that's why we're not prepared to open until a few more months.
Okay, another thing is saying, working at the TTS shop, our policies was to sign in, have temperature checks. Each time we come in, we got to sign in temperature checks, and obviously mask.
Yep.
As for distancing, it's very difficult because you have corridors that are very narrow. So, but at that time, we would, when we started, like in April, we had to shut down for a couple of months. Then, when we opened up, we would let 7 people come in with a couple of volunteers, and then later on, things improved, and then it was 14 people and a couple of volunteers. That was what we did.
We'll probably discontinue the process of logging all the items that come in, and we will not have any registration upon entry, because now you just use my pen, or I have to have another volunteer cleaning it. So we'll probably have no type of registration.
That's great.
Again, we're working through some of these things.
That's great. No registration. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very welcome.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, board members, at this time, I need a
Motion to go into
executive session. Rule number 2 is to discuss the employment history of a particular persons leading to the employment of a particular persons, or in addition, rule number 3, the proposed acquisition, sale, lease of real property when publicity might affect the value. Attendees would be the town board and the director of finance. Our attorney can have the rest of the evening off.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Condon.
Second. Kohovic.
We anticipate no action. It'd be nothing but we call for an adjournment upon the conclusion